Okay, good morning, officers, members of the public. Our roll call today is Councillor Duncan Surreyhouse, that's myself. We have a delay from Councillor Belinda Borden, whom hopefully will be able to join us before the presentation starts. Councillor Matt Bell, Councillor Richard Crabb, Councillor Spencer Flower, Councillor Craig Monks, Councillor Pete Roper, Councillor David Taylor, and Councillor David Took. Other officers who are assisting in today's meeting, we have Megan Rochester, Senior Democratic and Governance Officer, Anthony Nash, Senior Democratic and Governance Officer, Phil Crowther, lawyer, Eleanor Godseer, who will be presenting today, Felicity Hart, Minerals and Waste Planning, and Martin Peacock, Senior Landscape Architect. Do we have any apologies?
We've received apologies for absence from Councillors Tony Coombs and Belinda Rideout.
Thank you. And members, do we have any declarations of interest? David? Scott? Matt? Richard? Pete? David? Spencer? Craig? Thank you. No declarations of interest. So we're also joined today by Councillor Florek, who is substituting for a member who can't be here today. Can we confirm the minutes? Have we all had a chance to have a look at those from, seems forever ago, the 25th of November? Are you content for me to sign those after the meeting? Thank you. So it's at this point that I get to ask those that are making oral contributions today, would you like to do that at the head of the meeting, or would you like to do that in the usual manner after the report? If you could just indicate when you'd like to speak. After, yeah? Are we all content with that are speaking? That's lovely. Thank you very much. So today's meeting on the 24th of March is being chaired by myself, Councillor Surreyhouse, chair of this committee, and the meeting is being live streamed and is available to view on the Council's website, and by attending this meeting, you consent to being filmed. Before I begin, it is with great sadness that I report the passing of Councillor Dave Bolwell, who served as my vice chair for this meeting. Councillor Bolwell was a respected and valued member, and his contribution to this council and the community will be greatly missed as a friend, councillor, and colleague. The Planning Committee is not a public meeting, but a meeting to which the public is invited, and all attendees must comply with the ruling of the chair. Members of the public must not interrupt the meeting or cause undue disturbance. And to support this, if you could please switch off any mobile phones or select silent mode for the duration of the meeting, that would be greatly appreciated. Only those who have registered to speak in accordance with the speaking protocol will be invited to address the committee for a maximum of 3 minutes. You'll be given a heads up at 2 minutes 30 seconds, so you're not just left suspended with no mic. This is limited to the first 3 people objecting and the first 3 people supporting the application, who have registered along with the town and parish and ward members. No additional materials are to be circulated to members of the committee today. We have 1 application to determine today, and the planning officer will be invited to present the report and recommendations. Next, I will invite members of the public who have registered to speak with Democratic Services before the deadline to address the committee in the following order: public against, public support, applicant agent, town or parish council, and then finally, ward members. Each speaker has a maximum of 3 minutes. Following on from the registered speakers, the planning officer will have the opportunity to address any salient points they wish to clarify, and committee members will be given the opportunity to ask questions of the planning officer, initially those technical questions, before moving into debate. At the end of the debate, we will take a vote and I will declare the decision of the committee. Can I remind members that when we go into councillor questions and debate, please state your name and ward for the benefit of the public watching and speak directly into the microphone so that we can all hear you. If anyone is using Teams, please ensure you're on mute and your device volume is set to 0. Before we begin, just a few final points regarding general housekeeping. We're not expecting a fire alarm today. However, should the alarm sound, please leave the building calmly, without delay, using the nearest fire exits, which are located through the main doors at the back of the chamber. Many of you will have come in through them today. Exiting the main reception doors, and the meeting will be formally adjourned at that point and will only resume once it's considered safe to do so. So our public speakers against today are Councillor Andy Hollingshead, Karen Tippins, Tim Pope is from the applicant agent, Councillor Pete Mounsey is the Town and Parish Councillor, Mottcombe Parish Council, welcome, and our local ward member, Councillor Val Pottery, welcome Val. So I'm now going to hand over to our planning officer, if you'd like to start your presentation.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, members. So the application before you, can you all hear me okay? Yeah, how's that? Okay, good. So the application before you is the anaerobic digester facility proposal at Wessex Farm, Sherburn Causeway near Shaftesbury. The application is for the construction and operation of an anaerobic digestion facility, ancillary infrastructure, landscaping and vehicular access between the site and the public highway. So to give context to everybody, we have a site plan of the application site. It includes, I'll just get my, pointer so I can show you elements. So along here is the A30 and Sherburn Causeway, and then we have the main operations site area to the north of the A30, and then access from the A30. At the moment, the arrangement is that vehicles travel into the Wessex Farm itself and then through the Wessex Farm complex buildings and then travel up a access way towards the field. The proposal has, it proposes a new access which would divert traffic associated with the anaerobic digester to the west of the existing access. In terms of planning constraints, within about 1 kilometre of the site, we have various listed buildings. There's a watercourse, Fern Brook, and a unnamed tributary which lie from the along the south and the northern boundaries of the operation site. Point out Duncliffe Ancient Woodland to the southwest. We have Breachfields, Triple SI, and then Shaftesbury Conservation Area. Then looking a bit further afield, because these are features which have been considered in various support information. We have a larger part of the Shaftesbury Conservation Area. We've got the Castle Hill scheduled monuments. There's a medieval monument and a Saxon age monument. And then to the north, we have the Motcombe Conservation Area. And then we've also got the Cranbourne Chase National Landscape. So as a recap, because we haven't seen an anaerobic digester facility at committee for a while, the idea is that various live feedstocks, in this case we've got manures, agricultural-based manures, we've got agricultural waste, byproducts, and other agricultural origin feedstocks, and then also we've got crop feedstocks. These are all fed into an anaerobic system within the digesters. This produces biogas and also digestate in the form of solid and liquid digestates. The biogas would be upgraded to biomethane, which can then be fed into the gas system. And then also another byproduct is through the CHP, which is the combined heat and power unit, can generate electricity, which would be used on the facility. And also, as part of the upgrade to biomethane, carbon dioxide is produced, which can be commercially sold. So in terms of this triangle here, this is the waste hierarchy, which shows the various types of waste. And the idea is to move any waste from a straight disposal up the hierarchy. So in this case, an anaerobic digester is considered to be a recovery process, and this is because it produces energy. So this is a benefit for the application. It would be carbon neutral at best, and it would treat feedstocks which would otherwise be laid on the ground directly, and can be used as fertiliser. So in terms of the site photographs, the one on the left here is a view of the main part of the site where the access goes into the main area. And on the left here is the Fern Brook. Then we've got a picture of the eastern boundary, which is currently heavily treed with hedgerows and trees. And this is proposed to be enhanced in terms of landscaping. Then we've got a view from the east looking towards Duncliffe Hill to the southwest. We have a view from the north looking across the site to the A30. This is on the higher ground, and I apologise, the pictures are quite small, but if you zoomed in, you would be able to see the houses which are along the A30. And then we've got a view from the west across the site towards Castle Hill, which is approximately here. And again, if you zoomed in, you'd see the buildings associated with Shaftesbury. So in terms of site layout, I'll just show you this and then I'll zoom into the main operations site. But the main features to point out are that the access proposed new access road, which then leads into the existing access north of the Wessex Farm complex. And the proposal would stop up the existing access between Wessex Farm and where the residents uses the driveway, so that Wessex Farm would also benefit from improvements to their access by leading into the anaerobic digester facilities access. So zooming into the operations site, I'll go into more detail with each of these features in the next few slides, but basically we've got the 3 anaerobic digester structures. We've got the feedstock buildings, feedstock storage building. We've got the feedstock clamps or storage bays. We've got the digestate lagoon. And then we've got equipment associated with the upgrade of the biogas. So we've got the CO2 liquefaction plant, which is where the biogas is upgraded to biomethane, and then CO2 is also produced. The combined heat and power unit, and we have a flare, which I will explain a bit more. And then through the site, you can see the gas mains running through the site, which is one of the main reasons why this site was selected. So just showing you some elevations. We have the digestate buildings. This is the one that I'm pointing to is the eastern elevation. So we've got the digestate buildings and then the feedstock storage building in front, and then the associated other smaller buildings. So these are the elevations of the feedstock storage building. So this would receive a lot of the liquid waste, so the manures, slurries. The idea of the building is that it will be closed at all times other than when they're receiving deliveries. So when a delivery turns up, the doors will open, the truck will go in, and then the doors will close, and then the feedstock will be put into the storage area within the building, and then once they're ready to leave, the doors will open and then shut as they leave the building. The whole idea of this is to contain the liquid feedstock. Any odours associated with it would be within the building, and it would be an enclosed environment. And it's also going to proposed to have a ventilation system, which will be a low pressure. So when the doors open, the pressure will draw air into the building. So in other words, to try and keep the odours contained within the building. So the dimensions are there. So it's 48 metres by 26 metres by about 11.7 metres high. The proposal is going to be dug into the ground, so it will be about 2 metres lower than ground level, just to reduce its overall height. And also the proposal is on land, which is on lower ground than the surrounding areas. So I'll just go back to Wessex Farm, the main layout, and just point out this building here, which is the existing hay store associated with Wessex Farm. And it's of comparable footprint compared to the feedstock storage building, just to give you some idea of the scale. So going back to the elevations and layout, we have the feedstock storage clamps. Now these are storage bays. They would be outside and they would receive the dry feedstock, so predominantly anything coming in from the harvest period. The feedstock would be covered with a sort of geotextile membrane, and it would be uncovered to receive deliveries and then covered up again when they're not getting deliveries or they're not loading feedstock into the digester. And then on the left here, we've got the digested storage lagoon. That's got a capacity of 9,000 tonnes. The idea for that is that they have enough liquid feedstock in the lagoon so that at times when they're not able to spread digestate on receiver land, they've got somewhere to store it, and then it will, when they are taking it out to feedstock receiver sites, it will, obviously go down. I think it generates about 100. I think it was about 100. I'd have to double check, but it's constant flow. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Just some of the smaller buildings. We've got the CO2 liquefaction unit. This is a containerised building, so all the equipment's within these containerised buildings. The CHP and cooling unit, which is where the power would be generated, that would be about 500 kilowatts. And then we've also got the flare, which is only intended for emergency use or maintenance. So, the whole idea of this application is to capture the biomethane. So flaring would be something that they do on a very limited basis because that's their income, really. So in terms of the feedstocks, which I've spoken about, we have various different ones. We've got the grass maize and whole crops silage, which would be delivered during the harvest time. And as you'll see, it's actually a fairly small portion of the overall 97,000 tonnes per annum. The other feedstocks are predominantly, well, they're all agricultural. We have the manure, the slurries, and then we've got some sort of brewing products, some sort of more minimal products. So in terms of the products, I've also mentioned these already, but we've got biomethane being generated at 9.9 million cubic metres per annum. The CO2, which would be commercially sold at 10,000 tonnes per annum. Electricity at 500 kilowatts. And then we've got the liquid and solid digestates at 47,000 tonnes and 30,000 tonnes. So in terms of benefits, we've got CO2, which is being captured and then sold. And then the digestates are in replacement for artificial fertilisers. I understand fertiliser is very expensive, so having it generating a more natural form of digestate is a benefit. So turning to the planning considerations, I'll firstly deal with landscape. The planning officer report does go into detail, go through the landscape visual and visual impact assessment. The information that's been provided is very detailed, so I've really just, for the purpose of this presentation, just showing some photographs. So the photograph on the left is one that I've taken, and it just shows the Wessex Farm buildings in the foreground, and then if you've got bionic vision, you'll be able to see the electricity pole here, which I'm comparing to the electricity pole in the photo montage from the LVIA. And it this view's showing the site from the A30 at year one, or when the proposal was being constructed. And then moving on to what the LVIA has provided at year 15, just showing the planting which has grown up and helping to screen the buildings in the background. And then the other one that I just wanted to highlight from the LVIA is the view from Castle Hill. So the photo on the left is another one I've taken. I think it was summertime, that one. And then on the right, we've got the view at year one showing the buildings sort of in the middle of the picture here. And then I'll just point out the Wessex Farm buildings to the left as well. So that's year one. And then year 15, as the planting has grown up, would provide some additional screening. Turning to heritage assets, the proposal has various listed buildings around the site within 1 kilometre, and then also the heritage asset considered the Shaftesbury Conservation Area, the Motcombe Conservation Area, and the 2 Castle Hill scheduled monuments. So they were assessed at impact at year one. So the Castle Hill, both were moderate adverse and slight adverse, but by year 15 they have dropped down to slight adverse. And the Conservation Officer raised no objection to the application and supported the conclusions of the heritage assessment, and has considered that the impact would be less than substantial, so public benefits would need to be demonstrated, which are outlined in the report. Turning to highways, so as I mentioned before, a new access is proposed. Also, I've got a picture of the widening of the access which is proposed to enable HGVs to pass each other, and there's some waiting areas along the access as well. The existing access north of Wessex Farm would be improved, and also we've got the stopping up. So I haven't got my notes showing. Just wanted to at this point just tell you what the HGV movements were, but I just want to get the right figures. So the proposal is expected to generate 32 movements per day on the non-harvest months, and that would be 9 months of the year. And then on the harvest months, it's calculated at 69 daily movements, which is during the harvest period only. So it's been given for June, July and September, but realistically it would be on the days that they're harvesting as opposed to those whole 3 months. So looking at a typical 10-hour day, that would equate to, on the harvest days, approximately 8 movements per hour, and during the remaining 9 months of the year, approximately up to 4. So that's 2 in, 2 out movements per hour. So those proposed increase in movements are compared to the amount of vehicles travelling along the A30, and the calculation is that there would be approximately, like worst case, would be 1.31% increase of HGV movements in the existing AM peak hour traffic, and a similar increase for the PM peak hour traffic. And then obviously with the other 9 months of the year, those percentages drop down to about 0.61% increase or 0.59% increase. So the Highways Officer has raised no objection to the application in terms of the increase in HGV movements. the highway, the improvements to the access road, parking, turning, and supports the planning application. I'll just get back to my presentation. To go from there. Right. Okay, so in terms of ecology, we've received an ecological impact assessment which has considered the site, and the baseline is that the site is an arable field. I think the rating of the agricultural land was 4, which is considered to be poor, and I understand that it's being they grow maize in the site. So there's various enhancements which are proposed for the application in result of the application. So about half of the site would be used for the anaerobic digester facility, and then the western half would be used for B&G enhancement and settling ponds. And then there's also various other enhancements proposed, such as bat boxes, bird nesting boxes, piles for reptiles, to encourage those species on that site as well. So in terms of neighbouring amenity, we've received various assessments in terms of noise, air quality, odour. There's an odour management plan which has got lots of different mitigation and proposals which would help to manage any odours or pests which would may be generated. But I guess the key issue is that the feedstock building, the liquid feedstock building would be contained, and a lot of the equipment is contained. So the idea is through design is to prevent these odours and noise in the first place. So the mitigation which is proposed has been conditioned, was suggested through condition. But in terms of neighbours, we have the various buildings. So we've got Fernbrook Farm, and we've got White House Farm, which is probably the closest associated, which is not associated with the Wessex Farm itself. We've got Wessex Farm, and I think that's Fox. I keep trying to say Foxleys, but I think it's Foxview. So that sort of shows the separation distances, which are acceptable. And then we've got mitigation on top to assist in terms of mitigating against any of the potential odours or air quality or noise as well. So in terms of the conclusions, the proposal is at least carbon neutral and would positively respond to the Dorset Council's climate and ecological emergency. It is accepted that there would be a degree of landscape and visual harm resulting from the proposal when it's first constructed. However, by year 15, the effects on landscape character and visual amenity would not be significant. Separation distance, provision of effective landscape planting, and the accepted increase in vehicle movements generated by the proposal would not result in adverse harm to the Cranbrook Chase and West Wiltshire Downs national landscape. Trees would be protected, and sorry, I forgot to mention that there is an area tree preservation order on the site, but we do have a arboricultural impact assessment and have suggested condition for an arboricultural method statement as well. And so with that, the trees on the site would be protected. The proposal would result in less than substantial harm to the nearest heritage assets and their settings, which would be mitigated by public benefits, which have been outlined in the officer report. And then again, just mention that the proposal would result in no more than 1.31% increase in vehicle movements along the A30. Sherborne Causeway, and the proposed widened entrance and new access with passing places would improve road safety for existing residents and Wessex Farm and preserve highway safety along the A30. So implementation of precautionary measures, mitigation and enhancements would ensure that proposal would not result in negative impacts on protected species. B&G would be delivered on-site significant habitats, which would require managing and monitoring for 30 years. And then we've got conditions which could be part of the permission in relation to air quality, odour, noise, operating hours, management of pests, and submission of details for possible floodlighting, which would mitigate against impacts on neighbouring amenity. So in balance, the application is recommended for grant with planning permission subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Eleanor. So we now move to our public participation, and the first person that I call to speak is Councillor Andy Hollinshead. Andy, you'll have 3 minutes, and as I said at the beginning of the meeting, I'll give you a heads up at 2 minutes 30.
Thank you very much, Chair. Andy Hollinshead, Shaftesbury Town Councillor and Chair of Planning and Highways. I'm here representing the Town Council. The Town Council objected to this application for the following material planning reasons. The site is situated at the foot of northern slopes of Shaftesbury. While the applicants have submitted a very supportive noise assessment, there was a noticeable lack of an assessment on the residents of those northern slopes. As these houses are elevated, there will be no mitigating acoustic barrier afforded by trees or hedgerows. Secondly, the applicants have submitted a very supportive transport plan. If paragraph 5.3 is to be believed, there will be negligible impact with regards to the volume and nature of HGV traffic, delivering 97,000 tonnes of material, even though all HGV traffic coming from Shaftesbury and the A350 would go through residential areas such as Longcross. It sounds too good to be true. Perhaps it is. Thirdly, the applicants have submitted an air quality assessment, also very supportive. Apparently, there will be no impact of odour from the material being delivered to the plant on residents of the northern slopes. Furthermore, there is insufficient detail of any mitigating measures, such as a tree planting scheme, to conceal the site from local residents. Okay, in 15 years' time, apparently there will be, but we're talking 15 years' time from now. So that's in the 2040s. Lastly, Shaftesbury Town Council is deeply concerned about the visual impact from Castle Hill Scheduled Monument. On that last point, one of the jewels of North Dorset is the view out across the Blackmore Vale and Gillingham Forest from Castle Hill. A number of recent planning decisions, such as the large housing estates in Gillingham and the solar farms, have impacted on those views. This development would further detract from the beauty of the landscape, and what of the future should the site want to expand? In conclusion, on the one hand, you have a range of supportive documents saying it will be fine. You've been given technical planning advice from officers recommending approval. But I say to you that the crux of the matter is this. Is a large industrial facility processing animal waste year-round really not going to have a detrimental impact on the commonly held infrastructure and the quality of life of residents in the immediate vicinity and in Shaftesbury? If you have any doubt of the efficacy of the material planning considerations put forward, I would invite you to refuse this application. Thank you very much, Chair.
I now move to Karen Tippins. Karen, you don't have to stand. You can, if you like, but it does mean if you're seated, you're closer to the mic and have a better opportunity of being picked up.
Thank you. So my name is Karen Tippins, and myself and my husband, Dr. Richard Tippins, we live in the residential area of Longcross, which includes the conservation area. So It's on the A30 and it's close to the proposed site. We respectfully ask the committee to refuse this application. This is not a small farm diversification. It is a 6-hectare industrial scale waste facility right bang smack in a whole rural area, processing 97,000 tonnes per year, with a large digester, a lagoon, HGV traffic and continuous operation. So these are the criticisms, observations against the officer's report. The first is on traffic and safety. The officer's report accepts the claim that most of the HGV movements already exist on the road network. They do not. There is no evidence to support that claim, no survey, no baseline data. It is simply assumed. In reality, this proposal will introduce new heavy vehicle traffic onto one of the most hazardous stretches of the A30, a fast road with overlooking poor visibility and known collision risk. Reducing this to a 1% increase is misleading. We believe that it's been done on cars, not on HGVs. It should have been done on HGVs. Planning requires you to assess real-world safety impacts, not percentages. The second is odour and amenity. This is the criticism of the report. You are told this is a sealed system, but even the Environmental Agency confirms anaerobic digestion is inherently odorous. Odour arises from delivery, storage, and the lagoon, not just the digester. There is no real-world evidence before you that nearby homes will not be affected. You are asked to rely on future controls, not assess the impact now. The third, landscape and heritage. The report accepts industrial scale harm, particularly to the views from Castle Hill, but dismisses it because 30 seconds. Dismisses it because reduce over time. Policy requires protection today, not in 15 years' time. Environmental risk, water courses, etc. There's been no impact assessment done. So the position is this: the traffic evidence is unproven, odour impacts uncertain, landscape harm acknowledged, environmental risks not fully assessed. Therefore, we ask the members.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you. I now invite Tim Pope to speak. The same, Tim, if you're comfortable sitting, that's fine. It picks you up better.
Tim Pope, planning consultant for the applicants. This application provides a comprehensive approach to addressing burgeoning needs for safe agricultural waste treatment and renewable energy through an anaerobic digestion best-in-class technology investment of more than £20 million, sited and sized to local requirements to generate an annual gas supply equivalent for 8,500 homes, capturing carbon and supporting net zero targets. It is underpinned by detailed assessments used to inform operational procedures and the selection of proven technologies to embed mitigation within the design to protect the environment and neighbouring amenities. The facility is purposefully co-located with gas grid infrastructure, accessible feedstocks, distance from human receptors, and outside of national landscapes and designated areas of other sensitivities. Referencing key concerns understandably raised but fully assessed in the application, in the context of existing A30 traffic, an insignificant volume of additional movements will be generated using a safe and suitable access to county advisory and strategic road networks. Regulating vehicle movements through continuous GPS tracking will avoid convoy effects, the incidence of vehicles stacking back on the entrance or wider road network, and the potential for approaching vehicles to cause congestion on smaller roads. Demonstrated in verified visualizations, the retention of all existing hedgerows and trees, enhanced with substantive new planting, including a new woodland belt to the east, will strengthen site boundaries and natural containment, avoiding intrusion, protecting the area's character and appearance, and limiting the effects upon public viewpoints and the setting of heritage assets, including Castle Hill. There are no protected habitat or species constraints to the development relative to the statutory 10% requirement on-site biodiversity net gains will be 15% for watercourses, 79% new habitats, and 153% for hedgerows. The process is premised upon the insulated containment and digestion of manures, otherwise lawfully spread on open land, containment being critical to the efficiency of biogas production. Enforceable planning conditions will ensure an acceptable land use in terms of noise and odours, complemented by exacting Environment Agency permitting requirements.
And Tim, thank you. That's 3 minutes. Thank you. We now move to Councillor Peter Mountsie from Motcombe Parish Council.
Motcombe Parish Council opposes this planning application under 3 headings. Firstly, the impact of the development on the character of the area. We see the proposal as being incompatible with the parish's rural identity as reflected in our current neighbourhood plan. This is the 5th energy-related planning application in the parish, creating further industrial development in this rural parish located between the 2 rapidly growing towns of Shaftesbury and Gillingham. The other projects are 2 solar farms and 2 battery farms. It would also further erode the open and tranquil qualities of the countryside and, we believe, adversely affect views over the Blackmore Vale. We have concerns from the proposal of safeguards for ecology, environment, biodiversity, and particularly as we suffer of flooding from time to time, we are concerned that the additional hard surfaces, vehicle movements, etc., could increase that flood risk, increase pollution of surface water, and downstream impacts on further water courses that flow down into our parish. Secondly, the impact of the development on neighbouring properties. We share residents' objections concerning the likely adverse impact on air quality, of odours and emissions, plus light pollution and reduced privacy. The proposed development size and operation also imply prolonged hours of activity with vehicle movements and reversing alarms, reducing the tranquility currently experienced by local residents. All of these factors, we believe, are contrary to policy expectations that development would not result in unacceptable disturbance to neighbours with likely impacts on property development and general well-being. Thirdly, we have concerns about the impact on highway safety. The concerns about the A30 have already been raised, but the A30 is fed by a network of narrow country lanes with no pedestrianised pavements, etc., difficult junctions, one of which has accident record in that area, and we don't believe that the frequent HGV use will provide safe and accessible highways for all users. Also, given that safe access is a fundamental requirement of sustainable development, visibility at the junction serving Wessex Farm is limited, and additional large vehicle flows would exacerbate the risk to other road users. So we suggest that this proposition is overturned.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor. I now move to Councillor Val Potterkey, Ward Member. Welcome. You know the role with this one, Val. 3 minutes from the time you start. I'll give you 30 seconds heads up before the end.
Chairman, good morning. Members may not be aware, but last year, a new extensive state-of-the-art anaerobic digestion facility opened at a very discreet site on the south side of Wincanton. It's only 9.6 miles away from this planning application. Whilst, of course, I know it's not a planning consideration, I do wonder if the business plan for this proposed site has factored that in. It would be a huge local disaster to give consent for a facility that fails to achieve its stated potential. We have already heard the argument for resisting the cumulative effect of green energy solutions on this, the northern outreach of our county. We are not NIMBYs. We are willing to do our bit for our environment, our beautiful county, our world, but not for profit alone. As far as I'm aware, there is no presumption in favour of development, no tilted balance to consider, so down to honest planning reasons for refusal. We will start with an unacceptable impact on the landscape. The site falls within the Gillingham Royal Forest project area and the Blackmore Vale landscape character area, both identified in local policy as sensitive and valued for their scenic, cultural and historic importance. The application is contrary to Safe Policy GRF1 of the North Dorset Local Plan, which states that within the project area, development should enhance and not detract from the visual and historic character. This proposal fails that test. It also fails the test of the Shaftesbury Neighbourhood Plan, which prioritises the town's elevated, unique visual setting. That's why the saved slopes policy is so important in protecting the approaches from intrusive development. Under paragraph 208 of the NPPF, great weight must be given to the conservation of heritage assets. Where harm would result, the application must demonstrate substantial public benefit. In this case, the harm is not justified by the benefits of energy production alone. In fact, the 11 designated heritage assets appear to be pretty much ignored. The Shaftesbury and Mottcombe conservation areas and views from Castle Hill, overlooking the industrial nature of this unnecessary facility, are dismissed as having slight to moderate adverse impact on their significance. The suggestion that Shaftesbury, the jewel in the crown of North Dorset tourism, should have to accommodate this on its lowest slopes, frankly, beggars belief. There are other concerns about biodiversity loss, but thank you for listening, members. I would implore you to support the community and vote against this proposal for the reasons outlined. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Return to you. Are there any points you wish to address there? Thank you.
Most of the points were raised in the presentation or in the report, but one thing I did want to mention was that this application was screened for EIA as part of the EIA regulations. It did come out as not EIA development, but that doesn't mean that we haven't got the information which would consider the environmental effects of the application. All that information has been submitted in any case. So just to clarify on that point. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So members, if you have any technical questions, I can see we're keen out of the trap, so I'm going to invite Councillor Taylor, Chelmsford St Mary's.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Councillor David Taylor from Chelmsford St Mary Ward and Dorset Town Council as well. 3 areas I've got a concern of, which I'd like to, addressing the Chair. 3 areas I've got a concern of is the fact it's like, we've already seen mentioned about the transport coming in and out of the venue, the place. It is a 60-mile-per-hour road, I believe, and I've seen the road from Sherborne, because I'm a Sherborne lad. It is pretty difficult to stop, or traffic have problems in stopping when a lorry pulls out or a tractor pulls out with a huge container on the back. So what is being taken to care for that? That's my first point, please. Traffic variation.
I'm afraid we haven't got anybody from Highways here today, but the highway engineer was clear in advice to the planning officer that the transport statement submitted by the applicant was robust, and that the widening of the entrance to accommodate the HGVs was sufficient without causing any obstruction on the A30, and that the visibility in both directions was acceptable. And in terms of the quantity and numbers of HGVs, that was also considered acceptable by Dorset Council Highways. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like a supplementary?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to come to Patrick. I actually refute that. I'm sorry, but I mean things to do. I see these vehicles come out on the road on the A30, and yeah, it is a traffic problem. And as has been declared as well, there has been an accident hotspot as well on the road. So therefore, I'd like to know why Highways isn't taking this into account. And I do not agree. These vehicles do not come out. They take a long time to gather speed, and they are very big. And the thing is that they cannot be accessed safely because the cars come up behind, and they do travel at speed up there. We say 60, but we know they go 70. So therefore, I do not understand why this has been taken care of either signage system, reduction of speed, etc., to make its access more safe. That's my big question, first of all. I've got two more, thank you, Chair.
Felicity, do you wish to answer that with any additional information?
I'll just have a quick look through the assessment just to see what it was saying about the accidents. If you could give me a little bit of time, would be. Thank you.
For your microphone, thank you. Councillor, are you happy whilst that's being researched to move on to your additional supplementary question?
Thank you, Chair. I've got another two questions, actually, if you don't mind. Thank you, Chair. Odour. Now, as we know, odour capture is incredibly difficult, and I will point to the fact is that there is 45,000 tonnes of this stuff every year being put in, and that's animal waste and sewage. As you can see by the screenshot, poultry, I think, was 10,000 tonnes as well. Now, that is quite smelly. You know, I know this stuff is quite odorous because there is a chicken farm outside Sherborne, poultry farm at the top of the hill, and that absolutely reeks in the summer. So therefore, I'm trying to work out how they contain the smell. The thing is, they say they put the vehicles going in to the place of dropping their stock to seal the door, drop it, then walk back out again. Now, I'm sorry, but I don't agree that's a decent capture of odour, because the fact is that you open the door, it all flies out, and they are big doors. So therefore, I'm trying to work out why there is not a better way of transport of the odour products to the generator to be transported off or on, and then work it out whether or not it actually can encapsulate and safeguard the smells going up the valley, because I don't see that it can be. I really can't, because this is a lot of stock, a lot of odour, and it also creates a lot of odour, and that's what comes into my third question. Thank you, Chair. So can you kind of encapsulate for me?
Thank you. Eleanor, have you been able to get the information for the first question?
Not yet, but I can answer the odour issue. So a lot of the feedstocks will be in enclosed HGVs as well. So it's not as if they're going to be, just covered. They will be in contained vehicles. And so, as I explained during the presentation, they will go into the building. It has a ventilation system that is of a low pressure, as I explained. So the idea is that it's not theory. These are used in practice in terms of ventilation. So it will enable the odours to be kept in the building rather than being dispersed outside.
Supposedly. Don't like that word. I like to make sure that this actual unit is actually sealed. The ventilation system has been proven to actually stop ventilation of odours going out into the area and across the land. So therefore, that's the one thing I would like to come straight at and say, supposedly, might be, possibly, not a planning condition. It should be actual.
Do you wish to respond, Felicity?
Thank you, Chair. Well, all I can say is that the description of how it works is exactly how it works on other anaerobic digester facilities, and I have actually visited some, and it is extremely smelly inside the building, but interestingly, it's not really smelly outside the building. So the time that the door is open to allow the vehicle in is, seconds, and then it's back down again, and the reverse to come back out. And so it is a known method of, working for this type of facility. and has been done on other occasions in other places.
Well, I'm mindful that it's a committee, and there are other people that are waiting patiently to speak. So I'm happy to return to you should you still have unanswered questions. But I'm now going to move to Councillor Took from Alderholt and Cranbourne. David.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, David Took, Cranbourne and Alderholt is the actual name of the ward. Like Councillor Taylor, I've got concerns over a couple of things. And I looked through a few recent appeal decisions on this sort of project recently. And the two things that were intrinsic to those appeal decisions were traffic and odour, which means I'm slightly surprised that there's no one from highways here, because traffic is a significant factor. So that's disappointing. However, we have what we have. I'd like to ask a question as to where the vehicle movements are coming from. So you've got vehicles delivering feedstock. Where are they coming from? How far? Are they local, county, regional, national? And are they all going to be commercial vehicles, or are going to be tractors and trailers delivering as well? How is it actually going to physically work? Because it's not just the A31. There's lots of little country roads that feed onto the A31 that can suffer with slow-moving large vehicles causing bottlenecks. So could I explore that a little bit, please?
So, excuse me, a lot of the feedstock will actually be generated by the farm itself. Apparently there's a company on the site which will be providing a lot of the feedstock which they would otherwise be sending to other sites. So that's the first thing. And then the feed sort sites, I understand that they haven't got contracts yet because it's a new site, but they are trying to source them within about 15 miles of the application site. So, yeah, so that's probably, and I think there certainly is a benefit for having them close by or on the site in terms of, fuel prices at the moment are extortionate. So they've got to cost in the viability of providing the feedstock. Thanks.
Do you have a supplementary, David?
If they're sourcing the feedstocks from within 15 miles, that means that a lot of the traffic is going to be local. It's going to be on local roads rather than the main road, which concerns me because that's where you'll get these bottlenecks. And again, I'm very disappointed that there's no one from highways here. And I think that's a big error.
Thank you, Councillor. I now invite Councillor Flower, Verwood Ward, to speak.
Councillor Spencer Flower, Verwood Ward. I want to ask a question. Did I hear on balance being used by the officer presenting? I don't find anything in the report about it. When you came to a conclusion, I think you said on balance, this is coming forward for a recommendation to grant. Can you confirm that, please?
So I'll just find the actual page for you. Section 15, planning balance and overall conclusions. So it's paragraph 15.15, which, get the actual wording. These considerations have been weighed, recognising positive and negative effects and assigning proportionate weight. On balance, the benefits of the proposal are considered to outweigh the identified harms.
Thank you very much. I thought I heard the words on balance, and that's usually an indication that things are not quite as clear-cut as you might think they are when it comes to granting or refusing an application. And I'll be interested to hear what others have got to say, but that makes me slightly nervous that there are aspects of this application that are not as clear-cut as it might appear. And thank you very much for the presentation, but I have some of the concerns that others have expressed already this morning, but the on balance does, I think, add an edge to our decision-making here today. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. I'd now invite Councillor Borden, Lyman Charmouth.
Thank you, Chair. Belinda Borden, Lyme Regis and Charmouth. I've got a couple of questions on the HGV movements. So one, I think, was actually raised in some of the objections. So the percentage that you mentioned, the 1.31% and 0.61% in the non-harvest seasons, are they percentages of all HGV movements or of all traffic? And then the other question was, you mentioned that there were 69 daily movements in the harvest season, but not every day. Do you know roughly how many days during the harvest season? I mean, is it half of the half days, or I've no idea. I'm afraid I don't have a farming background. And so my third question was actually on the watercourses. Mention was made of a 15% biodiversity net gain. Are there mitigations in place to minimise any potential pollution of watercourses? Thank you.
So the highways issues are actually within the officer report, so it breaks down how they've been calculated. So paragraph 14.35, it says vehicle movements have been calculated for 20 working days in a typical month. So that's based on harvest months would be June, July and September, non-harvest for the remaining 9 months of the year. The 69 vehicle movements is for HGV, so that's 35 in, 35 out per day on the local network during the harvest months. And so that would, for the harvest, it's calculated over a typical 10-hour working day. And then in terms of the percentage, it was calculated, they did a speed survey, a 7-day speed survey, taking data from 2 points along the A30. So it calculated all traffic along the A30, which was, I've just pulled out a couple of figures in paragraph 14.37, where they recorded 525 two-way trips for all vehicles travelling along the A30 during the AM peak period, and then 540 two-way vehicle trips for the PM peak period. And then that has been compared with the 69/32 daily movements to get that percentage. And then in terms of pollution control, wasn't it? The site would be designed with pollution control in mind. It would need an environmental agency permit as well. So that would be the regulation which would protect from in terms of water pollution. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor, do you have a supplementary on that one?
No, that's absolutely fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Eleanor, can I just ask and pick up the point from Councillor Flower with regards to balance? We often hear that mooted. In fact, it's something that a point that the councillor has made himself in applications elsewhere. Can you just explain to the committee how you quantified that balance of benefit to harm?
Sure. So the balance has come from the landscape assessment. So we have a scenario where when the proposal's first constructed, we accept that there is going to be a degree of harm in terms of landscaping that will be mitigated over time as landscaping it builds up. And we've had a landscape strategy submitted, but my colleague Martin Peacock has requested that we suggest a condition for detailed landscaping so that we can secure the right plant species that would assist in terms of strengthening the boundary and working towards landscaping at year 15, which is given as an example, which would reduce that harm. So the balance is basically because initially we have an accepted degree of harm mitigated over time, but the other benefits and other issues in terms of the planning matters outweigh that initial concern.
Thank you very much. Very happy to move into debate now, if anybody has any comments. Councillor Crabb.
Thank you, Chair. Just another question, if I may, really. I'd like to know the percentage of tractors. I know that you're saying that it's all HGV traffic. That's what it appears like. I'm sure that wouldn't be the case. And the other thing leading from that, given that they're tractors, would the loads actually be sealed? I see that as being very important. And another question is periodical review of the management and the running of the site. Will that be carried out? Will there be any kind of subcommittee or entity put together to ensure that things are run as they should be? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor.
Okay, so the breakdown of the HGV types and their sizes, if they're tractor trailer versus HGV, is actually in the transport statement at Appendix, Appendix H. So that's the basis of all the calculations, which gets us to the 69 movements during the harvest, 32 during the other months of the year. So, I mean, we've got a range of vehicles. We've got like straw would be delivered by HGV tractor and trailer, which is 22 tonnes per load. I can, it's all here, but I could just throw some examples in. I think that probably a key issue is to distinguish that the harvest is going to be quite concentrated in over those 3 months a year, but a lot of the other feedstock will be delivered throughout the year on a much more regular basis. So that sort of evens out the numbers in terms of HGVs. In terms of them being sealed, that was within the planning statement, some explanation on what type of feedstocks would be containerised and which weren't. Like in terms of the harvest crops, they wouldn't be sealed, but then they're fresh crops, so not necessarily need to be, whereas some of the smellier, odorous ones will be. Was there another question? Sorry. Oh, sorry.
Yes, there's another question. It's about periodic reviews.
Thank you. We haven't got I'm not sure if you're alluding to a sort of a liaison group, maybe. There is not a condition for that at this point, but might be, something that we could consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pete Roper, Portland.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Pete Roper from Portland. A I've just got one quick question, and perhaps a little bit more of an involved one. Just a quick question about the where are we? The liquid digestite lagoon. Presumably that will be covered, so that will also seal in any odours with from the content of the lagoon.
Yes, it will be covered, and also I understand that there is some sort of system in place which would actually capture any gases coming off the lagoon and then feed them back into the system as well. There's a condition on the suggested for specifications of that cover. They have provided quite a bit of information in the planning statement, but suggesting a condition to get detailed specification for that.
Councillor David Taylor, Chelmsford St Mary.
Sorry. Thank you, Chair. Councillor David Taylor, Chelmsford St Mary. The flame. I need to get on that one. Can you kind of explain to me how this flame thing is protecting the environment? Because if it's used as an emergency aftershoot, which it will be, just to get rid of excess gases in case of emergency, how is it controlled within the environment issues? And plus the fact is, are we in a dark sky area around that area regarding flames shooting up and stuff? I'm not quite sure, because that wasn't anywhere in the report. So I'd like to know about dark sky, flames, and protection of the environment on that one there. That's one, if that's okay.
Thank you, Chair. Right, so the flare is designed so that I understand that it won't be seen, so it's designed so the flare will be within the unit. So it's not as if it's going to be like a candle or anything sort of flaring up. And also I just want to point out that it is something they would be using in a very emergency situation, because they're basically burning off their product. So, yeah, so it would be something that they would not be doing without a lot of questioning. Yes, that's probably most of what I can say. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor.
We're going back to the vehicle traffic and residents and the height of the season. What are the hours of the operation, please? Because I don't quite see that. You say a 10-hour, but there are 24 hours in a day. So I want to know what it's going to be operating on, because of residents being disturbed, etc., traffic movements. That is a concern to see where we are with that. And you mentioned about also 20 days a month. That's a 9 to... Is that a Monday to Friday, or is that a Sunday to Sunday? I'm not quite sure where all this goes to. So therefore, I need clarification on the operational hours and procedures, please.
So condition 24, which is suggested, would have operating hours between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. Monday to Sunday. So, but that does exclude the harvest period, the harvests, because as you might recall from another site that we dealt with a while ago, the harvest needs to be provided. It needs to be cut when it's the best conditions and not wet. So that's why that is excluded. But it is quite specific in that it says that it is for only that specific harvest period. But otherwise, 10 till 8. 7 till 8. Yep.
I really need clarification on this. Monday to Sunday, where are we with this? Because the fact is, the operation virtually turns into a 24-hour operation, 365 days a week. So I'm not quite sure where we are with this, because we're not conditioning it. We're actually saying, well, it's between those hours. It's Monday to Sunday. And the 7 till 8 is 13 hours, so it's not 10 hours. So where am I? I really don't get this. Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
So I need to clarify, this working hours is for deliveries and, sort of activity on site. I mean, it's an anaerobic digester, so it doesn't shut down and then start up shut down on Sunday evening and start up Monday morning. So it is a 24-hour operation. but we are suggesting a condition in terms of, the noisier HGV movements to 7 till 8.
Okay. Yep, sure.
Just purely the observation that we do have a biodigester in north of Dorchester that has store facilities. So I'm not quite sure why we're not putting a system in where it's got backup in the site. Are you expecting the lorry to come in, download it, immediately process it, then back out again? This is not quite clear. This area is not being run in an operation to protect itself, as far as I can see as well. That's a concern.
If I can ask the officer, is there any capacity to store anything on site? Presumably the tipping point is a store area prior to going into the digester, but maybe I've got that wrong.
I understand there's storage in the feedstock storage building itself and in the clamps, but they are, and it's constantly being fed as well. So it's not as if they're leaving material lying around, stored for a length of time. It will be continuously fed, and I think the idea is that they provide what they need to put into the digesters.
Thank you. Councillor Took.
Thank you, Chair. David Took, Cranbourne and Alderholt. I just want to clarify condition 24, which is apparently during June, July and September, you can have deliveries at any time of the day or night. Is that, well, that's what it says. There's no restriction on it.
If we can just give the officer a chance to respond to that.
So if you forget the first bit, initially, it says the site shall be only open to receive or dispatch any vehicle carrying other feedstocks, digestate, or any other material or equipment associated with the operation on site between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. And then the first bit is for the exclusion of the delivery of fresh feedstock, crop feedstock, during the harvest time in June, July and September. So, sorry.
There's no restriction on delivering fresh food stocks during those 3 months. Is that correct?
As long as it's harvest feedstock as part of the harvest, cutting, then that would be excluded, yes. But that's is a condition which was applied to another site recently as well.
Yeah, but I say, just for clarity, June, July and September, if you're delivering fresh crop feedstock, you could do that at 2 in the morning. Is that not what it's saying?
It is, but I think in terms of the way that the farms will be operating, they will be, I think they need to harvest during daylight and, in dry conditions. So that's my understanding. Excuse me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Well, that was somewhat more technical questions than we thought. David, are you exhausted by now or not?
I'd like clarification of all of that, please, because I don't know where I am. Because they say we could be delivering in the morning, nights, evening, weekend, whatever. It's not clarified at all. It seems that we're going all over this application, and where possible, maybe, could be, maybe, we're not sure. I'm getting really kind of a bit lost in this because I'm not sure it's an application, clean application. I don't see it. I really don't. I'm getting really a bit mogged by this. Thank you.
That's okay. Maybe I can remind you to help you when we've considered these things in the past and we understand the nature of farming and harvesting. And that's not an exact science, as neither is our weather. So I think if I've understood it correctly from the officer, that there is a window for non-harvest crops to come in, and that is a restricted time. During the harvest season, bearing in mind the potential for weather and therefore the need to continue cropping whilst it's not inclement weather, then that could, as happens in rural communities all over Dorset, they will harvest when they can. Now, obviously, it doesn't immediately regrow, so once it's harvested, it's harvested. But maybe the officer wants to add something to that.
That's fine, thank you, Chair.
Does that help? You wanted clarity. Thank you. Would anybody else? Now, if we could move on from technical questions, debate. I think something that has crossed my mind with this application, obviously we have surrounding parishes. We've spoken about a radius whereby reasonably crops will come in, and we know that that's going to be limited naturally by viability of moving these things around. I wonder if it would help give neighbours to this application site some reassurance if we were to include in the 106 that there would be an expectation of the applicant to enter into a liaison committee that it could review how things are going, especially with transport, the roads, safety, maybe annually.
I'll just clarify, there isn't a section 106, so we'd need to deal with it through condition. But, I mean, we could put a community liaison group condition on it. So that would, I mean, I've got an example here that we could possibly incorporate, which, shall I read out some of it, if you, just so you get a feel for it? So, say prior to the first operation of the development hereby approved, the operator shall submit to and agree in writing with the Waste Planning Authority terms of reference for and membership of a community liaison group. The group shall invite at the least representatives of parish and town councils and members of the public as a minimum, and shall meet at least twice a year. And then there's a little bit more in terms of notifying in writing that's, you know, it shall run until it ceases, basically. So that's a possibility.
Thank you. I think for that to be meaningful, it would be my expectation that the scope for invitation to that place would reflect the radius of search for crops. So if it is determined at a maximum of 15 miles, then it would be good to see all those parish and town councils in that radius invited to that space. So yes, thank you. So members, is there anything left to say? Would anybody like to make a proposal? Open to that? No? Well, in the absence of my vice chair, because I know Dave would be chuntering at the bit for this one, so I'm going to propose that we grant this application with the additional condition of liaison. I think there was once every 6 months in there, with the surrounding parish and town councils within a 15-mile radius. How do we feel about that? Councillor Matt Bell.
Thank you very much, Chair. Councillor Matt Bell, Radipole Ward. I'd be very happy to second that. One of the main reasons for that is we are a rural county. This is an agricultural landscape, and this is the sort of development that the NFU is very supportive of. The Royal Agricultural Society produced a report outlining numerous benefits of these sorts of developments to support our agricultural network. Other countries have gone far further with this. Germany is cited in lots of different pieces of literature on this topic. Numerous benefits of the scheme. I understand a lot of the concerns that have been raised this morning. A lot of those were answered within the detailed report that I'd like to thank the officers for. For that reason, I see this as very beneficial. I see it as beneficial to the public in terms of the services this provides, in terms of gas supply, dealing with waste products, recovery of energy, are all significant positives that go beyond just that site and benefit the wider community as well. Whilst I understand we'd like to maintain a rural landscape without change, that isn't the reality of rural landscapes. They have changed throughout time. This is the current change that is happening. The NFU in a previous report called for 1,000 anaerobic digesters across the country, and that still wouldn't get us competitive in terms of the development of these with some of our near neighbours on the continent. They are widely used. They are recommended by organisations, like I said, like the Royal Agricultural Society of England. Plenty of literature out there that explains those benefits. In terms of watercourse pollution, which I know was raised, it can actually help to reduce watercourse pollution across wider agricultural areas because you are making use of that slurry and other materials that could potentially be less managed in the wider rural landscape and end up in the watercourses. By taking management control of that waste, gaining the rewards of an anaerobic digester, we actually potentially reduce that risk. And that's what wider studies have shown. I realise that's beyond the scope of the report today about this specific site, but worth bearing in mind as another thought to consider. So very, very happy to second, Chair, and support the proposal you made.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the context as well. That's very helpful. Councillor Borden.
Thank you, Chair. Belinda Borden, I'm Regis in Charmouth. I'd like to support the proposal as well. When we visited a farm in, I think it was last August, at the invitation of the NFU, one of the things that I was quite surprised about was that they do actually put slurry, human slurry, on the land. And so the sort of modern recycling, creating a very useful product. As I think was mentioned, the cost of fertiliser is absolutely horrendous. And this sort of almost circular process of turning a waste product into a usable biogas that's going to be powering people's homes, as well as a very valuable fertiliser. And as my colleague has also mentioned, the reduction in the pollution risk, and with all the modern mitigations and the conditions suggested, I think we should support the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And yes, absolutely, it speaks to a circular economy in a rural setting, which isn't always easily achievable, and it does bring regulation into play, thus mitigating impacts on certainly watercourses, but I can think of many other aspects. So thank you very much. Does anybody, Councillor Took?
I had some reservations about this. It's not a brilliant application, but I don't want to let perfect be the enemy of the good. I was encouraged by the introduction of a review with the parish councils, but I'd just like to know what that review might look like in terms of an effect upon the ongoing operations. So would that review enable parish councils to have input that the operators would respond to and make changes accordingly, or how would that actually work? Because if they can start to initiate changes to fix the bits that aren't working through the 15 years or whatever it is, then I'd be inclined to support it. So I'd just like a little bit of clarity on that, if I may.
So it would be very difficult at this stage to actually quantify what contributions might be made and what issues there may be moving forward. But I think in the spirit of a good working relationship within a community, there would be an expectation on the applicant to engage meaningfully with that review, as I'm sure they would, as has happened elsewhere. I'm not sure that we can condition an outcome on something that we don't know what the concern is going to be at this stage, but maybe you could help me with that.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, if I could just clarify, I think that it probably would be difficult to put together a suitable condition requesting a review, because you'd have to specify what would be reviewed, and you might miss something that actually would come out in the liaison group meeting. So it's better in this sort of situation to leave it to the liaison group where things are flagged up. The applicant then has to deal with them and report back 6 months later. And also you have the opportunity to invite the Environment Agency along if need be. If there was some issue that couldn't easily be resolved, they could be invited as well to the liaison group. So I think that would capture all of those issues of review and ensuring that things take place as they do. So our enforcement officer, for example, would attend as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And of course, Councillor, if there were to be something that fell within a statutory nuisance, then of course we have mechanisms within the council that the different parish and town councils and members of the liaison would be able to report to, and they would have the support of the Dorset Council in that. Any more for any more, or are we happy to take this to a vote? Okay, so in the usual way, with a simple show of hands, if we can show to initially support to grant the application with the condition that the applicant engages twice a year with a liaison committee, and that body will be formed or offered to parish and town councils within a 15-mile radius of the site. Just one moment. So if you're able to just weave that into your one that I know we've used in another place, do members want to actually hear that? Do you want to take a break for a moment whilst the exact wording, or do you want to leave that as a delegated item to the officer? And content to delegate? Yeah. Okay, thank you. So I think we're clear what that needs to be. Okay, so we'll move to a vote now. So a show of hands, those in favour with that condition. Thank you. Thank you very much. Those against? Very good. Thank you very much. So that's P full 2025-04692, Wessex Farms, Sherborne Causeway, Shaftesbury, SP7 9PX is granted. Do we have any urgent items? No urgent items, and there's no exempt business? No. So I would like to thank all the members of the public and councillors that have come today. It's so important that communities are represented in this way, and it's the very basis of localism, democracy and representation. So I thank you for your time for coming here today. Members, thank you very much for your considerations and questions, and officers and democracy and lawyers, thank you very much. Safe journey home.